maybe.
I think we're live.
I hope we're live. Let's find out. Hold on real quick, everybody. Let me make sure that we are actually live. I've got some lag in the video. Actually, a lot of lag. Well, everybody, welcome to NFA Live. I'm glad we can affirm this. As ever, I'm joined by my compatriots, Guy from Coin Bureau and Ben from the CRYPTOVERSE. How is everybody doing today?
Doing good, thanks, Rob. I tell you what, I'm doing a lot better since I first clapped eyes on that shirt you're wearing. That's lifted my mood enormously.
Look, we can't all just wear white shirts like we did last time. We must all color coordinate into the best versions of ourselves. So thank you, Guy, for mentioning that. I appreciate it. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Just covering from Las Vegas.
That was a fun time. Anyhow, so everybody at home, if you're not subscribed to these two gentlemen, that's would be insane. There's a couple of channels you might want to check out. There's links in the description. Guy, Nick from Coin Bureau. There's also Coin Bureau, more Coin Bureau Trading, Coin Bureau Espanol, and Coin Bureau Chinese, which is, I've not checked that one out, but the Coin Bureau Espanol and Trading, fantastic stuff. Also, you can check out Guy over on his X account with his almost 1 million followers right now. So looking pretty good. Ben, of course, 900,000 subscribers over there on YouTube and doing quite great. I think he's just a little bit behind to get that 1 million, but he does have that on X. So if you want to check him out over there, there's plenty of options for you. So gents, let's get into it today. So there's a couple of questions I want to talk about. And really it starts off with, let's talk about the big picture, which is the macro. So Trump, and as I call her, Crypto Karen, they want to abolish this thing called the debt ceiling. And if we do that, will that be one of those things that will put us into even more debt? Or will this be an actual good thing for us to abolish the debt ceiling here in the United States? And as a reminder, this just came out this morning. I found this. Looks like the Treasury just bought back the most amount it's ever done, roughly $10 billion. And then, of course, on Truth Social, you can see that Trump is really pushing for this debt ceiling to actually be lifted and for us to just start buying like crazy. And as a reminder, this was actually from Toby. It's pretty funny. Quit pretending there's a debt limit. Look at this chart. This is what America does. So is this a good thing for us to eliminate the debt ceiling and we can pump funds into it? Or is this actually a bad thing? Because let's be honest, if we have no debt ceiling, then we can just start spending like crazy. And usually Congress is not really good as far as fiscal responsibility. Guy, I'm going to start with you on this one first. Then we'll get into like some price predictions and 4-year cycle stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess because you guys, as in America, has this sort of not quite annual thing, doesn't it? But the debt ceiling gets hit, and then there's a whole load of debate about whether or not to raise it. And the specter of a sort of government shutdown looms. And, you know, apparently Uncle Sam's going to run out of money. Federal employees won't be paid. And then usually sort of fairly close to the deadline, the debt ceiling just gets raised anyway. And everyone just kind of carries on until the next time. And it's all just, you know, it's all a bit of it feels like a bit of a pantomime, really. It's like, you know, are you going to raise the debt ceiling? Nope. Yes, actually we are. and it just carries on. I mean, it's kind of crazy, as Trump sort of highlighted in that post of his, that him and Elizabeth Warren both agree on this. But I kind of think in terms of when you're talking about US debt, which I think if I'm right in saying this, the interest payments on US debt are now larger than the defense budget, which itself is apparently larger than the defense budgets of, I think, the next 6 biggest military spending nations combined. It's wild how much money we're talking about here. Like China, Russia, the UK, France, whatever, they, you know, even what they spend on defense together doesn't match what the US spends on defense. And now you guys are spending more on interest payments for the debt. So I mean, that's crazy. And it has to be said, the US isn't the only economy that is in this sort of situation. Like France, for instance, is deeply in debt. I think the UK is deeply in debt. I'm sure lots of other major economies are deep in debt. But sooner or later, the US is by far and away, it's heading towards 40 trillion now.
Yes.
And no one, well, first of all, there doesn't seem to be any politician brave enough to actually tackle it, because there aren't an awful lot of options for tackling it other than causing voters immense amount of pain. And especially if you look at the sort of average age of so many politicians nowadays, a lot of them are, towards the older end of the spectrum. So you kind of think, well, they're not really incentivized to do anything about it, because by the time the reckoning comes, they'll be long gone. But you sort of think, well, sooner or later a reckoning is going to come, and the more you kick the can down the road, the bigger and nastier that reckoning gets, in the future. And I guess the only option that you're left with, that politicians are left with, is to try and inflate the debt away, which is what I think what I think they're basically doing. And if you want to make a case for Bitcoin, if someone said, give me one good reason why I should invest in Bitcoin, that's it. Because the dollars in your pocket are becoming worth less and less every day. And that is, I think, partly by design, in order to deal with this mountain of debt. And, people talk about a $1 million Bitcoin at some point in the future. They're probably right. It's just that that $1 million won't be worth what $1 million is worth today. And I could go on about this for a long time. So I'll let Ben have his say on this one. But I think what's extraordinary is that you've had Elon Musk come out recently and say that he's deeply unhappy with this one big beautiful bill that they're trying to wade through, which will basically I think is, most estimates say will raise the debt by at least 2 trillion and possibly more. So I'm left kind of wondering. It's like, well, when he colonizes Mars, will they have a different financial model, or will they have a national debt there? But yeah, it's a huge. It's the elephant in the room, I think, and sooner or later, it's kind of it's going to have to be dealt with, and that's going to be really bad.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Unfortunately, that's what America is good at. We're good at a couple of things, right? Diabetes, obesity, and of course, debt. So, Ben, what do you got for this one? Is this actually an okay thing to do as far as remove this ceiling debt? Because, like Guy said, we're kicking this can down the road. We've been doing this for quite some time. I'm waiting for the big recession that everybody keeps talking about. It's going to happen, or can we just push this as far down as we possibly can?
Well, they're great at kicking the can down the road. They do that all the time. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add to what Guy said. I would add, what I would add is I would just simply say that I think the bond vigilantes will be back again to have their say, which essentially means, right, if they're going to keep doing that, which they can do, and it's kind of like that chart you showed earlier, right? Like the idea of there even being a debt ceiling is kind of comical, considering that it just goes up and to the right nonstop. But and even just hear Guy talk about it, like I always think about, like, gosh, what do other countries must think of us, that this is a thing that we talk about and we argue about, when a lot of countries don't argue about like that kind of stuff, like where they pretend like there's a ceiling and then at the last minute they raise it anyways, and then it's like, well, why did we go through this again? But I think the biggest repercussions will likely just be that the long end of the yield curve will likely go up, because if they're gonna just keep spending like drunken sailors, which is what they're great at doing, then that's the only direction left for the long end to go. And I think, if you look at what happened in Q1, we saw risk assets go down. And when risk assets were going down, we actually saw the long end of the yield curve drop a considerable amount. So we know what needs to happen in order to actually have lower rates, right? We know what needs to happen. We need to have lower asset prices, right? That's the only way that we're actually going to see the long end of the yield curve go down. So it kind of reminds me of some of the things we've talked about before. Like kind of, you know, like how we used to talk about like Ethereum going home and stuff, right? Like in order for ETH Bitcoin to find a nice rally, first of all, ETH USD has to go where we don't want it to go. So it's almost like the same thing, where in order for the long end of the yield curve to go down and for us to have lower mortgage rates and you know, just lower rates in general, you need lower asset prices. And until they allow that, that's what we're likely going to see. So I have a feeling they're going to try to kick the can down the road again. Eventually the bond vigilantes will return and have their say, and then maybe people will finally get the memo as to what needs to happen to actually solve this mess that we're in.
Well, I will just say, yeah, I agree with what you both say. I think, though, that as the debt starts to rise and we see there's just a big flood of, you know, just removing the debt ceiling, then we have all that will be a, like Guy actually said, this would be a great case for, you know, Bitcoin, which is good for us. It's bad for middle class and a whole host of, especially the lower class, as far as like in the poverty levels, because if you don't have assets, then what do? You know, the savings that you have or the money that you actually make, it just gets inflated away. And all the people that are rich will get even richer because they're the ones that own the assets. So the ones that are watching this video, I'm glad that you guys are here, because if you have assets, I think you're going to do quite well. And if you don't, it's going to be a very hard world to live in, especially if we just see what's going to happen the next year, 2 years, 4 years. It's anybody's guess. But that would lead me to my next question about assets. And, well, one of the big assets or commodities, which would be gold. And we're talking about parallels. I was talking about this yesterday, about where Bitcoin is going, as we always do. But I took a look at this is the gold chart. And I'm taking a look at when gold came out for its United States ETF back in 2004. And it kind of parallels what's going on with Bitcoin right now. And we see this was in November 19th, November 18th, 2004. And for roughly 18 months, it did some pretty great things for the investors that were into Bitcoin. And 18 months later, we peaked out, and then we had a big, huge drop, and off it went. But it was an 18-month type of thing. And if we take a look here, Bitcoin and its ETF actually came out on January 9th, 10th, 11th, somewhere around there, 2024. And we're coming up to that 18-month, and it's done a pretty good thing, a pretty big thing, just moving upwards. So my question, I'll start with you, Ben, is because of these 4-year cycles that we love to talk about, is this just out the window? And since now that we have an ETF, Bitcoin will just grind up, just like how gold does with peaks and valleys? Or will we still have the 4-year cycle intact? And it's just something to take a look at, because if we're going to talk about, you know, gold, and we are replacing gold, or it's gold 2.0 or a better version of it, are we just following in the footsteps of gold? Yeah, that's a good one, Ben. But you are muted.
Sorry. Those were my low cap gems recommendations again. No, I mean, I don't really feel like Bitcoin has ever much behaved like gold. And I mean, honestly, that's been a good thing, because that it had. I don't really think a lot of us would even be interested in crypto if Bitcoin behaved like gold, because it hasn't really done a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, I still think the 4-year cycle is a thing. I think that, I mean, my guess is that the next major low will probably be near the end of 2026. I guess that would kind of correspond, but you could see like diminishing losses, right? Like you could see, you know, volatility compression where, you know, the highs aren't as high, but the lows also aren't as low. And we've even already seen that with Bitcoin through the first 4 cycles. Like the first drawdown we had was like 94%. And then the second one was 87. And then the third one was 84. And then the fourth one was 77. So we're already seeing volatility compression to the downside. And obviously we've seen volatility compression to the upside, as we have unfortunately been observing diminishing returns in terms of, like, you know, the return of Bitcoin, if you measure it from low to high or high to high or even low to low, right? No matter how you measure it, we've seen sort of diminishing returns for Bitcoin. So, I think it kind of like, I mean, gold, but I think it's just a sign of a maturing asset class, right? Where, like there's still going to be drops, right? And there's still going to be rallies, but you probably just won't see as much volatility as we used to see. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's following in gold's footsteps, because I don't really think it's behaved like gold that much at least throughout the decade that I've been watching Bitcoin. But I do think just in general, getting an ETF, like any asset class that's previously got an ETF, right? Like it can eventually lead to compressed volatility. That's not always true in the short term. I mean, sometimes you get ETF launches and you'll do well for a while, then you'll have sort of a bear market, and then you'll get extremely compressed volatility. And we've seen that happen with other asset classes. So, long story short, my guess is that we'll continue to see compressed volatility, both to the upside and the downside. I wouldn't say though it's necessarily following in gold's footsteps.
Gotcha. All right. So with that one, Guy, I'll bring it back to you as far as gold goes. And I know this is like something that people like, we really have to talk about gold, but I just want to take a look at it and see if I'm missing something. Guy, anything else to add with that one?
Not a huge amount. I mean, I think, yeah, it is difficult to draw clear parallels between gold and Bitcoin, and especially when you talk in terms of ETFs as well, because I think it's fair to say that economic circumstances and just I guess just circumstances in general were very, very different when back when the gold ETFs launched in, what was it, late 2004 to when spot Bitcoin ETFs launched certainly in the US in early last year, 2024. So there's a 20 years difference, and a lot changed in that time. Yeah. And of course, it also sort of assumes, if you're looking for a correlation between or a similarity between gold and Bitcoin, it also kind of assumes that ETF inflows are the main driver of price. And I mean, certainly with Bitcoin, and certainly shortly after those ETFs were launched, that was probably the case. Whether ETF inflows for Bitcoin and indeed for gold drive price as much as other types of buying is harder to say now. And I think Bitcoin has kind of come along. Bitcoin has appeared in a different era and attracted, I think, a largely sort of different kind of investor. And I suppose you could argue that perhaps it's possible that Bitcoin sort of trades more like silver than it does like gold, because it's a higher risk and therefore higher reward bet on gold, which is basically what silver is as well. So perhaps there's more parallels that you can draw between Bitcoin and silver than between Bitcoin and gold. But to take it back to what you said earlier, Rob, at the end of the last section we were talking about, and to paraphrase Lynn Alden, nothing stops this train. So anything that has a limited supply relative to the growth of the money supply will likely gain value over time. So if that's Bitcoin, if that's stocks, if that's gold, whatever, it's you need it as a hedge in this increasingly, as the fiat Ponzi scheme starts to unwind.
That's a good point. And you know what, I will say, like, as far as like gold, I showed everybody this, which was just it was a zoomed in type of look as far as gold goes. But if we actually zoom out, and even if we do as well as gold does, and that's just taking a look at gold, which I'm going to say is between an 18 and 22 trillion dollar market cap now. If we can capture some of that with this type of price action, and this of course is going back to what I was just talking about, this little piece here. But imagine us going to this piece. I mean, it could be a pretty big thing, but again, that takes time, and not a lot of people want to stick around, and only the ones that stick around are the ones that are going to be actually the ones that will benefit. So thank you for that input. I appreciate that. So now let's talk into one of our last questions, which is companies. And I get concerned about this, and Saifuddin talked about this, and I talked about this yesterday, because there's so many companies that are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. This is a good thing. This is great. MicroStrategy is, of course, the leader, and other companies are coming in. But I wonder if these companies really understand the value argument of Bitcoin, or if they're just putting into it because number go up. And when we do these types of things, we've got over 60, maybe 70 now different companies, and it seems like new companies come out every time. And if this does continue to happen, and they're not well versed in the volatility, which they should be, obviously, right? But people were supposed to be versed in volatility in 2021. But just like Ben was talking about, when we go from these different cycles, you have on the first one in 2013 and 2015, we dropped 85% from the high to the low. In 2017, it was 84%, and in 2021 to 2022, it was 77%. So if we look at that, 85, 84, 77, what if we drop 70% from the high? And if that high was roughly 112,000 on May 22nd, that means we get a 34K Bitcoin at a 70% drop. And if, I don't know, we go up to 150K and we do a 70% drop, and this is being conservative, we're down to 45K. And if we do hit 200K, which Coin Bureau just had a video on that one, if it goes to 200K, we're looking at a 60K drop. So these companies right now, as I've taken a look at it, they have purchased Bitcoin the majority in between that 90K to 110K level. And if we just keep going up, they're going to keep buying, just like Michael Saylor does in MicroStrategy. That's the whole playbook. So my question is this: if this happens, will we see an even greater fall because these companies will start to get the pressure from their shareholders to say, hey, you guys were supposed to invest into something that was, a hedge, and now we're going down. Sell this stuff as soon as possible. These are the risks that I see. Is this going to happen, or do you think they're already well versed in this? And Guy, I'll start with you because you just left off.
Yeah, it's there's definitely. Do you remember? I think it was in the last cycle, so maybe 2021. I think it was. Was it the Long Island Iced Tea Company changed its name to the Long Island Blockchain or Blockchain Company or something like that?
Sure.
And do you remember that? It was yeah. It was one of those sort of real moments of froth, and I do kind of think back to that time when I see this kind of when I see this sort of growing avalanche of companies adopting this Bitcoin treasury strategy. Because I think if you look at the likes of Strategy, obviously, and one of the newcomers like 21, which has got Jack Mallers at the helm, whatever you think of the likes of Michael Saylor and Jack Mallers, whatever you think of the strategy they're pursuing, you can't say that these guys don't know what they're talking about. As in, these guys understand Bitcoin on a level that most of us will never get close to. And there's there's evidence all over the internet to back that up. Like, these guys really do know what they're talking about. Do the CEOs and the CFOs and all the people behind all these other companies now adopting the strategy, the Bitcoin treasury strategy, do they all understand Bitcoin to the extent that Michael Saylor and Jack Mallers do? 100% no. 100% no. Like, I'm sure a few of them will have looked into it carefully and will understand. But I think this really does smack of a lot of people going, hey, this is a good way. This is a good way to pump the share price. Like, this is working this is a very profitable strategy, certainly in the short term. But it worries me a lot. Like, how many of them are doing this because they believe in what we were talking about earlier, in the idea of Bitcoin as a hedge against the fiat system, against the devaluing dollar? And how many of them are doing it because it's a great PR stunt and their share price will go, and the insiders of that company will be able to cash out. So yeah, it's definitely something that feels very frothy and gives me a lot of concern. So to answer your question, then, will they, if we get a downturn, if things go bad, will they panic sell? And I guess the answer is probably yes. Some of them will, because, as you say, Rob, they'll come under pressure from shareholders who themselves, a lot of them, won't understand Bitcoin and its long-term value proposition, who will go, look, we're getting margin called here. The bailiffs are at the door. We've got to sell something. So you've got to sell this Bitcoin. And And obviously, yeah, and that could lead to cascade if you throw liquidations in, because let's face it, if the market has been going up only and we get to 200, so many people will be long, and we see this time after time. The market dips, the euphoria cools off, and those liquidations take us even lower. And it could definitely get pretty ugly. That said, I think it's interesting to consider that a lot of entities now holding Bitcoin, and especially, like pension funds and things like this, you would hope that maybe they wouldn't be so quick to sell. You would hope that maybe kind of cooler heads prevail there. And I think and obviously you would imagine that Michael Saylor would kind of rather die than sell any of Strategy's Bitcoin, especially now that those wallets have been identified. I guess it comes down. It will get ugly. It just comes down to, I guess, how much debt have these companies taken on to acquire this Bitcoin as well. But it's certainly a risk. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Ben, what about you? Not a big deal. You think it's just like a couple of fringe companies on the outskirts just doing what Guy said? It's a stunt, and they're going to sell, and that's okay because the other 90% will skip it.
I mean, there's always going to be buyers and sellers, right? Even at the institutional level. But I think that we're, I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I think the narrative that you talked about, Rob, will likely play out in terms of, maybe some of the fringe companies selling. My guess is a lot of it's probably going to happen next year. It kind of reminds me of sort of 2021 in the sense that, like, you can see the narratives unfolding, right? You could see, all these big platforms back then that were offering all this excessive yield that everyone knew was risky, and like everyone knew it was going to come back to bite us one day. But because it wasn't going to happen immediately, no one cared, right? It was like, oh well, when it happens, we'll deal with it then. And then we had the midterm year, and then that's when we dealt with it. So I think that we will see this narrative play out. My guess is that, I'm hoping that some of the earlier people in, like Saylor, I mean, that's the big one, right? That they can survive because their cost basis is a lot lower. I think Saylor's is maybe just below 70K, whereas a lot of the other companies, like a lot of the copycats, are a lot higher, at 100K, maybe even higher than that. And so we're probably going to learn the lesson again, why you shouldn't be late. And there you have it, the margin called thing, right? And again, they become forced sellers. It's not, the companies that sell, like even in 2022, right? The companies that had to sell, a lot of them would have never imagined having to sell. But they, a lot of people just ended up having to liquidate their crypto just to get it off exchanges, just to, transfer it out and then get rid of it as quickly as they could, just so they wouldn't be part of the downfall. So I think the narrative will play out, especially for the late copycats, that maybe you're just doing it last minute because they see sale. It's the same thing that you see in any bull market, right? The people that get in early reap the rewards, right? Saylor's reaping the rewards for getting in as early as he did. And then the people that come in later, it doesn't mean that they can't reap some rewards for some time. I mean, like even now, Bitcoin is not that far away from all-time highs. It just means that, whenever the next downturn will occur, sustained downturn, not just like a 1 to 2 month drop, which probably in say like 2026, that'll be the narrative, right? It'll be all the late copycats that are, basically just being forced to liquidate, and hopefully some of the ones that have been around earlier, they have a much lower cost basis and they can weather the storm. Again, it's just like any retail investor, right? If you bought Bitcoin, at 15K or 20K or 25K, it's a lot easier to weather drawdowns that like we just had to 74K, right? But if you bought Bitcoin for the first time at 100K, then you're probably more likely to sell when we went down to 74K just a few months ago, because you just don't have that same entry. So you'll probably see the same thing happen. But I think, again, it's probably the narrative for next year, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention because like there's like little things we talk about. Mostly people are talking about the whole bullishness and things like that. I just want to bring people back a little bit to reality and go, hey, it's not up and to the right forever. There's going to be things that are going to happen. I want everybody to be aware because at some point you're going to have to plan for these things. And hopefully you plan before the action happens as opposed to planning when it's happening. So gentlemen, thank you for that one. And the last question for the day goes off of the crypto and talks about AI. I was just curious, like what you guys are using, if you're using AI at all for your day-to-day operations. And then what do you see is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 months? I just saw a video, a new company came out and they're able to clone your voice perfectly. And you can make that as your AI agent and do all different types of things. I forgot the name of the company. I'll find it at some point. But what are you guys using AI for right now, if at all? Ben, got anything with that for Into the Cryptoverse or not?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. My thumbnails have been upgraded, ever since AI was created. True. We went from 7th grade PowerPoint presentation thumbnails to, to something better. The reason I never wanted to create thumbnails was because I thought it was just like a waste. I just thought it was a waste of time. Like, I'll just put something up there. No one's going to care. But with AI, I mean, I literally can make the thumbnail just as fast, right? I mean, it's literally just go to ChatGPT or whatever it is, and then just type in, make me a thumbnail for this video. And a lot of times I'm nice to it. I say, please. Maybe if they ever get to the consciousness level, they'll think about the ones who were nice to them. But the thumbnails, I use it. Honestly, like that's like the main thing I use it for, as far as crypto is concerned. But I will use it for a lot of other things. I mean, like even if you just Google stuff, like you'll see like the AI overview at the top now, which kind of makes you wonder, it seems like that's more or less the direction we're heading. And I think there's a good chance that, in a few years, like the idea of, when you Google something and then searching through like 30 or 40 different, like the first page of links, that'll just be a thing of the past, right? And when you Google something, you'll just basically take the AI overview as like the answer, where you're just going to assume that it's going to give you the best result and you don't want to waste your time sort of sorting through the mess. The other thing I use it for is if I don't know what something is, I take a picture of it and I just ask, what is this? And it's really good. It's really, really good. I actually just did it yesterday. We had this, I went into my garage and there was this like massive snake in the garage. It was like 5 feet long. And I took a picture of it and I said, what is this? And then it told me exactly what the snake was. So, that's mostly what I've used it for. I can see though, like why it would really be useful for, maybe if you could have an agent, like an AI agent, like I see the value in that. I just think that, like I haven't gotten to that point where I've really implemented those sorts of things, but I do envision that like we're sort of seeing what the future holds. Like, I mean, AI is only going to become more, it's only going to become a bigger part of our lives as time goes on, would be my guess. So I think I'm going to keep trending in the direction of using it more and more, and not less and less. So that's mostly, and I feel like if you're in college, a lot of people are using it to help with assignments and stuff, but
what? No way.
With assignments.
I'm not at that point. I think back to like grad school. I'm like, man, like I can't tell you how many like Python scripts I had to write to like analyze the simulation data that I created. I'm like, man, like if I could have just gone to ChatGPT and said, hey, write a Python script for this, it would have saved me so much time. I mean, like I probably could have done my PhD in like 3 years instead of 5, if I could have just saved all that time coding. It's crazy how much time, like, I don't even want to think about it because I feel like there's the amount of time I wasted coding so many things when had this tool existed, 5 years earlier, it would have probably saved me 2 years of my life. So, I think those are some of the main use cases for me.
Yeah, I will say I was talking to Sebastian, which if you guys don't know, obviously know, he's kind of like the main lead there for Into the Cryptoverse. And I asked him, hey, Sebastian, are you using AI? He's like, yeah, for like the more tedious things to like help out with the website and to bring things in and to do stuff. He goes, I let the the AI code to ChatGPT do it, and then we fill in the back rest. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then before I get to it, like when you were talking about that snake, this is how I use it. So I'm donating time at the local animal shelter, and I see this on the ground. It's a baby bird. And I'm like, and it's alive. And I'm like, hey, what is this? And how do I save this? And then I took the picture, and it said, it told me the type of bird it was. It told me what to do, told me where to put it back so it doesn't die. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So things like that can be done. And I was like, I didn't know I could do that. So Guy, what do you got for like AI? What do you guys do over there at Team Coin Bureau?
Well, in the interests of full disclosure, Rob and Ben, I should say that the real Guy has actually been sipping old fashions at a beach club here in Dubai for the last 3 hours. So we use AI a little bit. No, it's I echo what Ben says, especially that thing of being able to identify. Like I'm really into doing that with plants. So I'll take a picture of a plant and be like, what on earth is this, and how do I stop it from dying? In terms of using it here at here at Coin Bureau, I guess we also use it a bit with sort of thumbnails, thumbnail design. Although still we've got a really amazing chap on the team who specializes in that, and he still is way better at AI than that. So, but he definitely gets some help from AI. Me personally, I really like Perplexity. In fact, I now use Perplexity instead of Google. So I just don't Google things anymore. If I have a question, I'll type it into Perplexity and usually get a very satisfactory answer with sources and everything. So I'm a big fan of that, and that's made a big difference. But I think there's so many ways that it just seems to be knocking some of the more tedious edges off things and streamlining things, and I think that's a really that's progress. That's really positive. The more I use it and the more I think about it, the more I feel that this is something that I want to use at work. I want to use it in an office environment, say, and then when I come home to my regular life, I don't want it anywhere near me. I'm starting to really get more appreciation for physical, real world things like, books and plants. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, I know I can see how amazing it's going to be, but I'm also quite not necessarily fearful, but wary of it. And actually, whilst I'm on that topic, let me just share something that I found just recently, which I think is pretty damn scary. Can you see that on the screen?
I'm gonna add it right now. Let me remove some things.
Because this article is from a few weeks ago. I'll bring the headline: AI systems resort to blackmail if told it will be removed. So this is Claude, but apparently they spoke to someone at Anthropic. So apparently this Claude was under test under test conditions, because they're talking about what would happen if it was unplugged, and it was resorting to blackmailing people with supposedly by going through emails and finding evidence of an affair that one of these developers had. So like, whilst this stuff is really, really cool, and it is going to revolutionize everything, at the same time it's like, it's scary as hell. Like, it is, we are on the brink of no longer being the most intelligent entities, as in we, humanity, not us three. Well, maybe Ben, but on the brink of no longer being the most intelligent entities on this planet. And that's scary, because what will this more intelligent entity eventually decide to do with us, with us meat bags? So I think it's amazing. I kind of really welcome a lot of what it's able to do. I just feel that at some point it's like, are we going to have to say, well, this is probably as far as we want to take this. And even if we do, will we be able to? Because, by that point, it may have figured out a way not to let us unplug it. So, yeah.
Just make sure you keep saying please. It might remember.
Yeah. Like, hey, don't put that one, or don't kill that one. He said please and thank you. He's a good person.
Yeah.
So yeah, excellent responses. I mean, AI is the future. We know it is. It's scary, but it is what it is. I will just say there is a couple of things. First of all, I don't know if everybody has seen this great video. Hold on, let me make sure you can. I want you to hear what this is, because it was pretty good.
Rob and I had too much fun in Las Vegas.
We had a good time.
That much is clear.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. I'm coming at you from Las Vegas, where we're going to be at the Bitcoin conference. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin dominance. It is now at 64%, and altcoins just had a new low in terms of weekly closes against Bitcoin. And I do think we likely will see that trend.
My altcoins?
Not your altcoins. Yeah, so we're not talking about your altcoins, but I do think Bitcoin dominance will likely trend higher. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next.
Yeah, so that would be Ben's video they did. But I would like to say, like, every time about AI and things like that, just be aware that with the good that we just talked about comes
you are
also
lucky
the
to
bad.
be among the random people I decided to reach out to today to know how trading has been, and to also know if you have found my content useful so far. But first, I would like to know your name and where you are from. Hello there.
If you don't know what that is an AI generated Ben, and it looks reasonably, no, it looks like crap, but it doesn't matter, because it's going to get better, it's going to get smoother, and people are going to get scammed out. This was sent to me. I know Ben knows about this already, but everything that you guys are going to be subjected to, everything's a scam. You can't even trust us. Maybe we're all 3 AI generated type of characters, and we're telling you the wrong information. So you have to do your own research. But if you feel that everything is a scam, I think you're going to do a heck of a lot better. And I will say, if you want to, make your life a little easier, there's something that you can do. First of all, any website or any DM or any email, you can stick that. Hold on, why is this not coming up? Oh, let me remove this.
That very scary AI Ben.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to remember, like, we won't be reaching out individually to people asking for stuff. Just a good reminder to new people, assume that all that stuff is a scam.
Yeah, exactly. But what you can do is you can use AI against itself. And like, I uploaded this video to ChatGPT and I said, hey, is this fake? And it said, yeah, this is fake. You can do that for any website that you get. Say, is this fake? Yeah, it's fake. And I guarantee you 99% of what you guys are going to get, it's going to be a scam. So if you use the AI for itself, against itself, you're going to be a heck of a lot easier. And that's what I'm using AI right now for. And then also to save baby birds and stuff like that. Anyhow, that's it for today, everybody. So a lot of information to put away, but I say thanks for both these gentlemen for coming in. Now we'll get a little Q&A, go about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get out of here. So I actually asked this question on Twitter yesterday, or X. And here's a couple questions for us. First of all, the big question, which everybody wants to know, have we topped? Anybody want to take this one? Have we topped for this cycle? Or do you think we've got a little bit more room to run, and why?
I would say I don't think we've topped. Certainly, again, well, you've got to be careful what you're discussing here, haven't you? Because there's a big difference between Bitcoin topping and alts topping. I don't think Bitcoin has topped. I think even if we are in a sort of euphoria stage with Bitcoin treasury strategies coming out the woodwork, and Michael Saylor just buying more and more, et cetera, I still think there's a lot of room to run. And one interesting thing to watch out for, just to go back to what we were talking about at the very top of the stream, the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Ben, I don't know if your wonderful website has a graph of this, but what's interesting is that Bitcoin quite often tends to rally around US government debt milestones. So in 2017, the $20 trillion milestone was passed, Bitcoin rallied. In early 2022, 30 trillion, and Bitcoin rallied again. And just as a reminder, 40 trillion is not all that far away. So I wonder whether we might top around then. That's pure speculation on my
Dubious
part.
speculation.
But yeah, I would say I think we probably have a bit more room to run for Bitcoin, but always manage your risk appropriately.
Exactly. Ben, same thing.
I think we're probably just kind of seeing the same thing that happened the last 2 years, where Bitcoin, it gets a rally in May, sort of the May, June timeframe, then cools off for the third quarter, and then we pick back up again later on this year. I could kind of see something like that play out for the third year in a row. We'll see, but that's generally what I'm thinking. So I mean, we could always find a local top soon, and then get a pullback into Q3, and then maybe go back up again later this year.
Got it. Yeah, I can see that. I hope that. That's for definitely sure. How about this one? What changes do you foresee in the top 12 market cap coins? Anything going to fall out of favor, or you think it's going to stay the same? I've always said that, if you want to look into something to get into, stable coins and the rails that they're built on, and then of course, how much is actually, as far as like TVL into those stable coins. So like I know with USDT, Tron is a big winner. I think at over $75 billion into Tether. And then for USDC, it's mostly Ethereum layer 2s and then a little bit of Tron. So anyhow, what do you guys think about top 12? Anything that's going to surprise?
I'm just looking at the top 12 now. I mean, I see it number 12. It depending on I'm looking at CoinGecko rather than CoinMarketCap. I mean, I'm seeing number 12 is wrapped Bitcoin, followed not far behind by Hyperliquid. Hyperliquid, I think, will probably become a top 10 asset by market cap. Wrapped Bitcoin, I think, Coinbase has its own version of wrapped Bitcoin. I think there are other versions coming. So I can see WBTC maybe slipping a little bit. In terms of what might drop out, I mean, it's hard to say, really. I guess maybe the most vulnerable are, the likes of Solana, Tron, and Cardano, just because I think stable coins are probably just going to keep on growing. Dogecoin, perhaps. I mean, if people kind of if people fall out of love with that a bit. But I say the likes of Solana and Cardano and Tron just because they may be supplanted by other other layer ones, which is obviously one of the most competitive spaces there. Same for BNB, but yeah, stable coins are definitely the ones with the strongest. I would say, outside of the top 12, probably my bets to crack into that would be Hyperliquid and maybe Sui as well. Yeah.
And then, Ben, I'm just going to kind of brush over that question on the top 12. But real quick, where can I watch Ben's presentation at the Bitcoin conference? That's actually a good question. I don't know. Can you watch that anywhere?
I don't know. If you guys find it, let me know.
Yeah, because I was looking for it. For all the different talks, I mean, for on the main stage, Nakamoto stage, you could find all those, but I couldn't find Ben. So then it has that link.
Someone, I got an email from someone that moderated mine saying it might take a while for that stuff to come out. Like it could be a few weeks, few months. I don't know. I think eventually it will be available, but I don't know when. I don't know where. And by the way, as far as the top 12, as you're talking to Guy about,
all right.
I think the only thing that we can say for sure will still be there is Bitcoin in the top 12. I think that given enough time, you have to be aware that anything and everything can elect at some point to leave the top 12, because again, if you go to CoinMarketCap historical and just look at 2013, 2017, 2021, and now 2025, a lot of coins change. There's a few that have been up there. Ethereum has been up there for a while. XRP has been up there for a while. But a lot of them do change, and you should expect them to change, because we'll always be, I mean, there you have it. Like, look at like Namecoin, Peercoin, Feathercoin. I mean, what the hell is that? If you look at, I remember I bring this up a lot in 2013. There was at one point BBQ coin was like number 11. BBQ coin. But you have all this stuff, and I think people think like today is different. Like today, or it's different today than it was back then. But all these meme coins existed back then too. The only thing we changed was the tickers, the names of them.
Megacoin.
Megacoin. That's a good one.
I mean, look at that name coin. Like they couldn't even come up with a name, so they just named it name coin.
No, this one, Ben, though. This one, moon coin.
But I mean, saying like the asset class has been doing this exact same thing. Go to like maybe like October 2013 or something. But yeah, we've been doing the same thing over and over, and every single time people think their meme coin is going to stay forever, and then they don't, right? They don't. And Litecoin, I mean, Litecoin used to be number 3, and look at where it is now. Like it's fallen down a lot. Yeah, but a lot of these just don't. They never had a few. Look, number 24. Go back to you. You didn't see it. It was number 24.
Hold on.
I mean, you have to hand it to Litecoin. It survived. Everything else, like all of those other ones, are gone. Apart from
that's the point. Like so when you think about it today, I'm not saying that all of them in the top 12 are going to be gone, but like a lot of the coins just kind of go to the wayside. I mean, I still remember in 2013 these other coins and people were buying them and shilling them. I remember like WorldCoin, or was it WorldCoin or something else? I don't remember. Yeah. But there was a lot of coins back then. Yeah, made safe coin. There were a lot of coins back then where people were like, gambling on, and like they all basically just went to zero.
Yeah, well, not your altcoins.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about your alt, Rob.
Yeah, exactly. Let's preface that. Oh man, that was depressing. But that was a trip down memory lane, and I remember those days, and everything was going to go up. So remember, everybody, nobody ever went broke taking profits. And maybe those altcoins that you think are going to be awesome because community, and it's going to be awesome and to the moon. Maybe that's not going to work out. So anyhow, good reminder. I want to give a shout out to Nick's hammer, because we have Ben's chair. I think we have Rob's pool. Now we have Nick's hammer. I'm just waiting for, like, I don't know, Guy's perfect hairline or something. If we get something like that, that'd be great. But Nick's hammer, congratulations. You are another one in the naming category. Very nice. Let's see. I think, by the
way, altcoins did put in a new low against Bitcoin just a few days ago, in case anyone wanted to be reminded of that.
Burn. That hurts. I mean, for some. Let's see. You know what? This is perfect. Let's just leave it like this. Those coins weren't as degen as what we have now. I think that's a perfect way to end this, because as a reminder that we really, really did some bad things with those meme coins. And I think it's going to take a while to recover, but we'll see how it goes. Anyhow, that's it for today, guys. It's a time to get out of here. Enjoy the day. Thank you, Guy and Ben. Of course, you're not subscribed to them. Links are in the description for everything. And we will see you guys in the next week. I will be gone next week. I'll be in France. So if you want to wrench attack me, I'll be at the Eiffel Tower. But I'll be gone the next entire week. So we'll see what happens with NFA Live. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you on the next one. Adios.